Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on a very important conversation about cultivating empathy in the next generation. I am Kavita Srinivasan, the former editor-in-chief of Cosmopolitan Middle East. I resigned my job to dedicate my life to helping parents and children navigate what is the most important journey, the family, raising your children and raising yourself. I'm currently a parenting coach and doing my master's in holistic psychology. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you Hani Soubra, a university lecturer, media and communication expert, and an author. Born in Beirut in 1967, Hani is Lebanese and lives in Dubai. An MBA, he worked for the BBC for 14 years in the capacity of a regional director in charge of the entire MENA region, giving him a deep understanding of both the news and the media industries. Amongst the books that he has written, The 100 Educators highlights his views on education, where he insists that teaching with empathy is the most important. Education is not about getting a job. It is about appreciating others and ensuring all have the right for a better life. With his vast knowledge related to the culture, media, politics, and fundamentalism of the Middle East, Hani Soubra is a sought-after speaker at festivals and talks, and we are absolutely honored to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Kavita, and thank for all the organizers who have invited me. I'm really looking forward for our conversation. And indeed, empathy is by far one of the most neglected tendency or attribute that we as humans possess. Unfortunately, little is practiced, and I'm confident that as we go on in the conversation, we will explore more facets and more sides of empathy as a way of living. And before we expand on the conversation, I will begin by saying a great social scientist believed that empathy holds the medicine for the entire universe. So if you would like me, I can start by defining what empathy is and
What
how
is empathy? What
and
is
how,
empathy?
absolutely, and how it can be used in our day-to-day life. Well, far away from the social scientists and the psychologists and the psychologists, I would like to emphasize that empathy is simply feeling into others. It's feeling into others. Traditionally, it's being defined as putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. Granted, that's absolutely granted. But I would like to add one extra dimension to it, which is the following. After you feel into somebody and after you replace that person in front of you with yourself or your most loved one, mom, dad, kid, whatever, then you act accordingly. So there are two folds of empathy here. The first is feeling into, the second is an actionable item that you need to perform in order to elevate that pain, that pressure from the person that is sitting into you, unconditionally, without any reward. Because at the end of the day, once empathy is practiced, believe it or not, it's not about the person opposite you. It's about you. It's about you as Hani, as Kavita, as X or Y. At the end of the day, it's about defining the meaning of our existence on this planet. There's definitely more to what we go on in our day-to-day lives. Now, the session will progress and we will talk how we are all absorbed and consumed in our day-to-day life. It's called the rat race, to the extent that we are so caved in and so encapsulated in our little selves without even looking outside the balcony to see how is the health, not of the environment, not the birds and trees, but even our own health. Because the rat race is so overwhelming and so consuming that by far the third lung that we possess, which is empathy, is neglected. Now, there are a lot of myths around that, not around empathy, around the no need for empathy, because the general perception is this. You don't need to empathize, you need to survive. Consequently, once you survive, it's about the application of the rule of the jungle. There are two false examples given from the animal kingdom. Number one is about the big fish eating the little fish, and number two is about the wolf. If you are not a wolf, you are going to be consumed by wolves. Now, both are wrong, and there are a lot of examples from the natural world, from the animal kingdom, and from us as Homo sapiens, as a human beings, to debunk that myth. Let me start, please, by the natural world. I just ask everybody just to examine how cooperation is all around us, how we are as a humans and as a universe. We are the result of cooperation. Examine the way our microbiomes work in our human body. The microbiome is the forest of microbes that we carry and bacteria that allows food, that allows vitamins to be extracted from the food that we eat in order to keep us going. Imagine the way photosynthesis works. Trees extract light from a source that is 150 million kilometers away in order to add not only beauty and splendor to this universe, but also to add shelter to all in need, in addition to the service they provide to the ecosystem. Imagine the coral reefs, the Amazonia of the oceans and the seas. That's what keep the marine life alive. So if you examine the natural world and how it all functions, everything is in cooperative terms. Move to the animal kingdom. Two very quick examples. Every 5 years old is aware. The ants and the bees. They don't survive without cooperation. Move to the human race. Now, wonderful authors and historians and social scientists. My favorite is Yuval Harari in Homo Sapiens. He clearly identifies how at some stage in our existence, we were 4 races living on this planet. And the only reason why the Homo sapiens survived against the Neanderthals, against the Floresienses, and against I will get the fourth one in a bit if you don't mind, is because we had cooperative tendencies. We had cooperative tendencies. The Neanderthals, for example, were found to have bigger skulls, which means bigger brains. So it was not about intelligence. It was about cooperation and mutual collaboration that led us as Homo sapiens in order to endure and consequently survive. Sorry, the fourth form of living was deinocyvans. Yes. So be it the animal kingdom, be it our own biology, be it our own race, cooperation is the way forward. And there is no other alternative for us as a human race to progress. I mean, we multiply by productivity, but we only prosper and progress through mutual collaboration.
So essentially, what you're saying is that empathy is the foundation of our survival that we've lost track of.
Absolutely. Now, in the context of mutual collaboration, where does empathy comes in? So imagine mutual collaboration is a massive net that bind all of us together as a human race. Mm-hmm. Now, on this net, the fruits of our creativity and imagination and collaboration falls, and the net capture these. Also, that net protects us because once we fail, we have to bounce again. Now, the fabrics or the texture of this net are the strings of empathy that binds us together and that elevate our human standards and make this net more forceful and more powerful.
Yes, but what do you say to people who, and believe me, I completely am on your side because I know the neuroscience behind this. But what do you say to parents and to people who, because I truly believe that this starts at home and in schools, the way you speak about it, what do you say to parents who say, there's a lot of competition out there in the world. I need to toughen my child up. I need to prepare my child for this world. These sorts of inherent messages that you give to your children. And then they go out into the environment and they feel like we have to fight for our rights. So as you said, they think they're in the jungle when they go out into the world. They don't see it as a place for collaboration and togetherness, which is really the foundation of our evolution. But they see it as an unsafe place where they have to fight for their rights. So what do you even say to parents at home? How do you address this?
You see, absolutely. If the fulfillment of our presence as a human being is to be humans, and that, by the way, earns us the title human being, then the competition out there that the parents are talking about is misleading, because the competition out there has to be about attainment of virtue, has to be about looking after the environment. Because I can tell you this, Kavita, and you will agree, like all the listeners are, if all of us have developed unicorn companies or $1 billion apps, and we all become rich and famous, but if the temperature of this planet rose by 3 degrees Celsius, all of our wealth is going to be irrelevant. If all of us are the most handsome and good looking, and famous and have the wonderful following on social media. But if once the sea level rises and you've got 2 billion people pushed from sea level cities to inward cities, your entire life is going to change. So, with all my respect and love to the parents who teach their kids that it's a jungle out there, you know what? It might be a jungle out there, but the objective of that kid is not to join the jungle. The objective of that kid is perhaps to organize that jungle en route to making it a beautiful garden. And the only tool that we as humans possess to do it is through our empathetic attitude towards each other. And when you say competition, what are the parents talking about? Jobs? Is that it? So I have 2 kids. My main objective for my 2 kids is to be in good positions, is to be in good jobs, but let them be racist. Let them despise the other. Let them bully the other. And most importantly, let them destroy the environment and their own health because they have good jobs. No, of course, it doesn't work this way. This is a formula that is set for destruction. As a human being, I don't believe that we are put on this planet in order to get good jobs. There are far more things to do. Number one is looking after the health of our own biological health, because of our health phase, we can be of good to anyone. Number two is looking after the environment. Without the environment by which that hosts all of us on this planet, it's going to be a total waste of life, to be honest. There's one thing the Greek philosophers used to always say, and I carry that strongly, that you need to live a life that is worth examining. You have to examine your own life. If you feel that I feel great, that my bank account is nice and thick, and if you feel that I have nice abs and muscles, mission accomplished, then I'm afraid you are not living. You are definitely, not you of course, going to be the richest man in the cemetery, and both abs and biceps have no use in a cemetery, I'm afraid. There is more.
Absolutely.
There is
No,
more.
there's this thing called the big lie, right? The big lie that we are separate from each other, that the world is an unsafe place, and that we are separate from the environment. We are all one and we are so connected. If anything has really made that obvious, it's COVID. One virus in one place at the other end of the world spread like rapid fire in a matter of seconds because we are all connected. So, how do we use that connection for good? How do you talk to your children at home? How do you talk to yourself? And a lot of the time, Hani, I feel like it's about the empathy that we show ourselves. You're so important about the biological health, about our physical and mental well being. Because when we empathize with ourselves and show ourselves compassion, then our children learn to treat themselves like that. And that's how you treat others. And that is infecting. So, how do you see that in the education system? How do you see that playing out at home and in the education system? Do you see compassion? Do you see parents and children showing, I mean, parents and teachers showing themselves and children empathy? Do you see that being modeled so children learn that at an early age? If not, how do you propose that parents and teachers talk to the children? How do you propose that they actually teach them empathy?
Well, there are some very bright examples coming from Nordic Europe, specifically in Denmark, where empathy is taught, and they follow a wonderful thing in their education system there. But that from the first 4 years, that is 3 to 7, sometimes 4 to 8, the children just play, and when the weather is nice, they play outside in nature in order to value the beauty of what they have around them. Now, as the children play, and neuroscience and psychology tells us that empathy as a tendency is developed in an actionable item from the years 2 to 4. So we are all born with the capacity to carry on empathy as a way of life. We are all born with that. It is the nurturing that matters from culture to culture, family to family, and country to country. So to answer your question, there are already existing positive signs where the institutionalization of empathy is happening, i.e., it is in the education system. But let me talk more about a topic that is dear to all of us, which is the family part. Everything, the school plays a huge role, of course, but it's the family that is the unit that produces good people or bad people. Other things equal, the human will is in tandem with the upbringing of the parent. So the philosophy of empathy is based on the relationship management. I don't mean that in a corporate sense. By relationship management, I mean there is you living in this world, and there is everything else around you, starting with God the Almighty, ending with that little tree that is at the back of my house over here in Dubai. That is a relationship worth either appreciation or worth destruction. So, a great Austrian and German philosopher called Martin Buber has established the following: the I and thou premise. So, a relationship is managed and defined by one of two premises, either an I and thou, and that's an answer to your question what to teach our kids. Let's teach them that there's a relationship that exists between you and the tree, you and the cat, you and the dog, brother, sister, mom, dad, God, you name it. And that bond is called I and thou. Under the I and thou premise, everything is sacred. Everything is united in being because it becomes a relationship from one subject to another, be it a human being, be it a tree, be it an animal. Now, the opposite of the I and thou is the I and it, where the subject to subject relationship perishes. It becomes smoke and it is replaced by the I and it, where the second subject becomes an object. And what do you do with objects usually? You objectify them. Zoom more on relationship now in the way we understand it, be it marriage, be it partnership, be it corporate. The moment an individual is objectified, that individual is dehumanized. That individual rights are deprived, subject to gender, subject to race, subject to religion, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. So if I want to teach my kid, and if I would ever had more kids in my life, I hope I've done a good job with my first two. I would like to teach them this. You have to understand the world around you as a relationship management. It's an I and thou all the way. We are all united in being. We are made chemically of the same elements of this planet. It takes an exceptionally self-conceited individual to think that he or she is better than anyone else, unless by virtue. So if you want to compete, we go back to that. Please come and defeat me, not me as an individual, as Hani. Come and defeat me in virtue, because you know what? What a wonderful defeat. I'll take that any day. Somebody is looking after those trees better than I am. Somebody is offering help to strangers better than I am. So on and so forth, so on and so forth. So that's the pillar number one. That's the pillar number one. Relying on education as it is now, be it here, be it in Europe, be it in the States, be it anywhere in the world, is going to defeat the purpose of producing good humans, because all the education systems, and this is the great educator Ken Robinson has taught us, is geared towards the job market. It's just get good jobs and that's it. But that's not enough. So after you get a good job, then what happens? You have another mission, which is getting married and having kids. And then what happens? You get a divorce or you continue. And then what happens? You perish. So is that a life worth examining? I think not.
You know, it's really sad actually what you're describing. I the other day I was at a tennis class with my child, and there was a mother and another child over there, and she was forcing him to play even though he did not want to play. And I thought to myself, why is she forcing him to play? Because I really need him to play tennis because it's important to have a hobby. And I said, really, why? I said, oh, because, then that's how, sport is important, academia is important, that's the thing of success. And I kept quiet, but in my head, I was like, what is success? So if he plays tennis, he'll be successful, he'll get the right job, he's doing what he doesn't like. And then what then what? If you make the money, you make the right connections, then what? If you're not connected to yourself, if you're not doing what you want, and if you're not showing your child that what you want matters, be connected to your own body, then how do you even develop a connection with anything else?
Yeah.
See your child for who he or she is, right?
It's the unity in being, Kavita. And it's a wonderful premise to think of. Just on families, I want to share with you a story because I lived it myself right here in Dubai. My younger daughter is called Hani Soubra. She's 18, and she was the subject of extensive bullying at school. This is in the context of families. Thank you. And at some stage, it was becoming incredible to manage. So we went to the principal, her mother and I, and we asked him, can't you do anything with this subject? I mean, it's not okay, and this is a top-notch school here. And we invited the parents of the kid/kids that were bullying our daughter. And the answer from the parent was shocking. The answer was, you need to teach your kid how to be tougher, as opposed to they need to teach their kids how to be kinder. Now, of course, the principal was busy examining the P&L of the school in case he fires that student. But the moral of the story is this. So if families are a factory of good upbringing, what kind of damaged product are you producing if you are telling me that I need to undo the kindness we have inserted in our kid? But I want to conclude the story that my daughter graduated with a GPA of 4.1, and she is currently studying at a great university in Europe. And she's an exceptionally kind person. So it can be done. It can be done. And I cannot forget that she told me that she wants to be the bigger person, because I am an Arab, a Lebanese, and I told her, you have to fight. You have to fight. She said, I want to be the bigger person. So, and indeed she is, not in my eyes, but in eyes of a lot of people who know her. So the moral of the story is this. If I was sat with the parents in a school where the high walls protect the kids and the parents, I was told that your kid needs to be tougher, implying more vicious. What do you expect? But in order not to take this the wrong way, besides the wonderful stories and the curriculums that are coming from countries like Denmark about teaching empathy, I would like to give an example of Greta Thunberg, because eventually empathy is either innate or acquired. Greta Thunberg, the famous environmentalist, is a kid from Sweden. And at 15 years old, she challenged her parents to reduce their carbon dioxide footprint. And of course, her parents complied. Now, why the example of Greta Thunberg? Because that represents the enlightenment model in empathy. I'm sure you know that some musicians like Mozart or Rachmaninoff. Mozart was 6 years old when he wrote his first concerto called the Magic Flute. But some people are enlightened. Some people are naturally geared up for empathy, like Greta Thunberg, a great role model of mine. Now, what Greta Thunberg did, and she earned a speaking slot at the UN, irrespective if it fell on dead ears or not, but she rallied millions and millions of students worldwide, asking the world leaders to stop this insanity called climate change. Look around you, Kavita, just like summer, what happened? Fires, rain, flood, what else is happening? So some people are enlightened, because we were talking, so how do we instill empathy in the hearts and minds of people? Some are enlightened, like Greta Thunberg, hats off. Others, it's innate. And I want to give you a few examples that psychologists, neurologists, and biologists have confirmed that we carry this tendency, just like we carry the tendency of courage and bravery, or cowardness, conversely speaking, naturally. Dr. Singer is a famous neurologist. She conducted a study on Buddhist monks, and she found extra neurological circuits that allows them to offer that positivity and empathy we're talking about, thanks to their mindfulness exercises they do on daily basis. De Waal is a famous evolutionary biologist, and his theory that we are all social animals meant to cooperate confirmed that in our soul existence, empathy, carrying the empathy genes is there in our minds, in our composition, in our human bodies. So nobody have the excuse to say, I can't teach empathy. You don't have to teach empathy. You have to nurture it. You have to nurture it because it's in you. And eventually that factory can either produce a Mother Teresa, a lady from Macedonia who decided to leave everything and come to the slums of Mumbai. And we all know her beautiful legacy. Or you can produce an Adolf Hitler or an ISIS. Congratulations, you decide what you want to do in this life. But it's all in there. It's all innate. Some people have it by enlightenment, others have it by an acquired practice.
Completely. I'm a big believer in, so you say Greta Thunberg, I feel like that is a calling in this lifetime, and she's genetically wired and she's come into this world like that. And her parents must have done something to nurture or let her be herself, or she had the spirit to fight for it. But what of those children who don't have that? What of those children and parents who don't have that? I have seen so many people, friends included, and it is quite frustrating, but who tell their children, toughen up, you know,
Yeah,
don't toughen up, come on, get up, you fall down, you get hurt. Oh, come on, it's just a small boo boo. It's fine, get up, you can do it. There's no empathy being shown there. It's like if you fall down, it's as detailed as that, right, honey? It starts with, if I fall, nobody will pick me up. I have to pick myself up. This language in schools and in homes, it's so disturbing. How
true.
do you begin to change that? How do you begin to change that?
Just in an attempt to answer your question about Greta Thunberg family, what they have done right, and I will lead to the other points that you have
Yes.
mentioned. I
Mm-hmm.
feel that Greta Thunberg parents have done two things right. Number one, and I need to emphasize how respectful they are. Number one, they probably taught their kid to have no fear. Have no fear. Kindness, eventually, you don't have, if you walk into a fire, you're not brave. You're most probably lacking cognitive processing. But if you forgive, then you are exceptionally brave because you have defeated in you the tendency to be a dictator, the tendency to be a depot, and most importantly, the tendency to hurt. Now, why do most people shy away or veer away from offering that help that is needed? Simply out of fear, simply out of fear, because in their mind, the narrative is either the fish or the wolf in companies, sometimes in families, politics, God forbid, we're not going to talk about that. But it's always about the fear that if I am kind, I'm construed as weak. Consequently, I'm going to be devoured. I need to say on Greta Thunberg, she is a sick child. She has Asperger's syndrome, and that's not an easy disease to deal with. Yet at 15, she carried banners at the gates of the Swedish parliament in Stockholm, demanding to reverse policies on climate change. And she was successful in Sweden, regrettably not globally, because the entire global system has a lot of diseases that's suffering from. So the families, what they can do, they have to remove fear from the hearts of their children when it comes to doing good, because apparently doing good is construed as either naive or weak or even worse, begging for attention. Because you know what they say, you do good because you want good to be done to you. But that's not the case, really. You do good because that's how you want to define yourself in this universe. Now, the absence of compassion or empathy, bear in mind that empathy is stronger than compassion because empathy is always tagged with an action. You gave the example is one you fall. It's truly regrettable because what is happening to an individual that is being observed by another one is going to be the same, more or less. The unity of being, what happens to you will happen to me, but in a different format. If I lose a parent, and God forbid, a dear friend lose a parent, it's the same thing, but it's a different format. That's why the sooner we realize that we are united in beings, if we lose all the trees in the world, we lose. We lose. If we lose all the birds and the pollinators on this world, we all lose major crops and we all suffer and struggle. The unity in being, Kavita, is what prohibits somebody from picking somebody up. And the biggest manifestation of that sense of the unity of being is empathy.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head with fear.
Definitely, it's fear. And the second significant trait, it's our negative and innate part of our human nature. You have to remember that we are all switchboards comprised of too many things. We are so complex as a human being. I mean, sometimes you envy the animals because it's straightforward. I'm hungry, I eat, finish. Whereas in the case of human beings, it is so complex. And at the same moment, we are exceptionally good, we are excessively bad. So a constant lamp that is persistently lit by the fuel of empathy will help us always to direct us towards the ultimate target of giving and kindness en route to becoming a better humans. I'll give you a small example. The same, the same human race have carried a Mother Teresa, as I have mentioned earlier, and have produced the ISIS and the Adolf Hitlers of this world. These are the same when it comes to human nature. But we all know, what we all know is that that nature is a very, very fluid concept. It's a
Yeah.
very fluid concept. And sometimes we keep forget some major philosophical premises that will help us if we master them. The difference between fate and destiny. Because fate is what is given to me, starting from gravity, ending with God creating me via my parents through a biological process, ending with the oxygen being produced in the air. That is fate. But destiny is what I make out of my life. So indirectly, I control my destiny. I control my Mother Teresa in me, and I control my Adolf Hitler in me. So if you are not aware, and that's the second point we need to teach, we started with the Babur premise, I thou. The second premise we need to teach is that you control your destiny. Unless, unless we perceive the world as if we are, excuse me, a floating nylon bag on the ocean. Because if we are a floating nylon bag in an ocean, then when we are moving in a directionless way, it depends on the external forces of the winds and the wave to push us left, right, north, and south. We control our own destiny. And the third premise I would like to add here, that is my formula to develop that empathy premise, is our human will. Is our human. How do we represent ourselves? Not now forget empathy, park empathy aside. Think anything else you want, be it our personal life, be it our dark side, be it our light side. How do we present our life? Is it a big lie? Or is it a true manifestation of the value system that we believe in? If it's a big lie, then you have a wonderful place, which is called social media. You can do anything there. You
Yeah.
can even post pictures that don't belong to you and you can say, this is me. If it's a true manifestation of your genuine value system, then this is where you can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to delve a little bit more into fear because I think
Yes.
that's a really important thing. Um, Especially with COVID, this COVID has been such an eye opener in so many ways. People have gone two ways or three ways, right? One is this is a really unsafe word. I want you to be extremely safe, and I want to take every precaution so our children are not infected by COVID. Okay, so there is a fear of this virus, which I think is very representative of a fear of the world as at large, that we are unsafe out there. Mask yourself, be really protected. I'm not going to send you to school. You have to be very, very protected. There's the other flip side of people who are like, just the only thing to fear is fear. So just go out and do your own thing. And then there's a middle ground where you get vaccinated, and you live your life as normally as possible, but you let your children say there is no fear. You just have to strengthen your body. So COVID, I think, has shown the people who are really scared, who are really not scared, and the people who are a little bit more in the middle. How do you think this is going to impact the future? The fear that a lot of the children have been infected with during this time, and how is that going to impact empathy?
I think I agree with you with one thing, that COVID is an eye opener in the sense, probably a negative one, but on the emphasis of the unity of being. Eventually, it took one virus that is hardly microscopic to paralyze an entire planet.
Yeah.
And second thing that COVID has shown us is the need to cooperate. Now, irrespective where it came from, that doesn't matter. That's not the place for it. But whether we like it or not, if we do not cooperate in combating this virus, then it's going to be a total loss for all. And I want to say something here. Just examine the absence of empathy in the global system, the
Mhm.
way the world works. Most of the rich world is vaccinated, and some countries like Canada have 9 vaccines per person, although you don't need more than 3 or 4. All of Africa and part of Asia are not vaccinated. Now, maybe this is the opportunity to practice what people like Greta Thunberg are preaching. Think global, think universal, and send those vaccines to the other. And I am speaking here in a very clean and neat forum. I hope our voices will reach out. All what COVAX need, which is the platform that is distributing vaccines equitably, is less than $4 billion in order to vaccinate 95% of all of Africa and Asia. That's still not happening. This is the absence of empathy on a national level, on a global level. To your point about how it will impact the kids, I am confident. I am confident that there will be bullying and that there will be malignancy prior prior to empathy and kindness. At the end of the day, even us as normal human beings, maybe that does not include you and me and other fine people, the moment we are hearing of somebody who has passed through COVID and recovered, although that person, he or she is fully fit and healthy, people are keeping distances and people are being segregated on that purpose. There's another point that I would like to add. So, what do you do with the people who are not going to take the vaccines? What do you do with the people who, for health reasons, cannot take the vaccines? Do you shun them out? So, did we add another layer of complexity to our society, gender, race, religion, and now we're going to segregate also on the basis of that? These are problems that require solutions, and unfortunately, there is no immediate solution to that, but it's definitely an outcome of what you were saying, Kavita. This will be a problem in the immediate or in the near future. With regards to kids segregating against adults, I am confident it's going to happen. We have been combating and talking racism for the last, 50, 60 years, since World War II finished, 1945, say, and the new order was born, mid 50s. So far, 65 years later, it's still there. Racism is still there. Maybe it's not institutional. So in the USA, a black president can be elected, period. Congratulations. Twice Barack Obama was elected. So it took us 60 years, and we are still talking about racism. Perhaps by the time we're going to start institutionalized empathy, it might take us that long. But it's a wonderful case. It's a wonderful case. And if there is any merit in life, is to do two things. Number one, keep on learning, and number two, leave with a legacy. So if the people like Greta Thunberg, Kavita, and Hani, and other fine people is about the legacy of preaching empathy, let it be. It's a worth life living. It's a life worth living. It's a life worth examining. Let it be. No problem. I need to add one more thing because we were talking about education. Mm-hmm. At some stage, I do believe that there is probably enough material out there to form a curriculum and a syllabus by which you can teach empathy. Now, I'm not talking here about teaching empathy in the meaning and definition as we are discussing. You have to introduce real cases from the good and the bad. Now, we have mentioned empathy and we have mentioned some heroes, Mother Teresa, we have mentioned Greta Thunberg. Mother Teresa stands for the empathy of unconditional giving. Greta Thunberg starts with the empathy towards the environment. Mandela stands toward, and Mahatma Gandhi, they stand for empathy for selfless governance. So these are the branches of empathy that the young generation need to learn from. Parallel to that, there are a lot of negative examples, but I need and I would love for these to be taught, not to be vicious, but you need to teach. What did that police officer, Derek Chauvin, did to George Floyd? You need to teach that. How can anyone put their knee on the vein that transmits oxygen to your brain for 9 minutes and eventually kill him? That's pure and blatant murder, and the man got what he deserved in a court of law in the USA. You need to teach that Tsarnaev brothers, who are the Chechen two radical fundamentalists who did the Boston bombing. And parallel to that, you need to teach what that kid, Tim's parents, have done. He perished. He was 4 years old. He perished in the explosion. But they told the global media and Tsarnaev parents that we forgive your child. Now, gladly, one of them is rotting in a solitary confinement for the rest of his life. Well deserved. But all of these are case studies that requires teaching. Reflect on Ota Benga, who is a small kid that was brought from Congo. He was the last member of a tribe, hunter-gatherer tribe. When he was brought by explorers and voyagers visiting Congo in the early 1900s, his house was the chimpanzee cage in the Bronx Zoo in New York. You need to teach that. How did that happen? And why did that happen? Because that's the only way you are going to remove the malaise of racism from society, using empathy as your instrument. So if it's a surgery, empathy here is your scalpel. Empathy here is your tools and your equipments in the OR, where you are removing that malignant tumor called racism. So empathy here becomes a tool. You are exercising empathy in order to cure. And that what I tie to how we started this conversation, Kavita, that empathy holds the medicine to all the malaises of this world.
Yeah.
Teach these case studies, teach the ugly, teach the beautiful. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I wish that the education system would have a class on that, or would imbue that sentiment into everything that they do, into absolutely everything that they do. But unfortunately, even the language used in schools and even at home, it goes down so deep, right,
Yeah.
honey? Like when the two children fighting, if one child pushes the other, a teacher or even a mother could say to the siblings, "Oh, you're being a bad boy. Don't be a bad boy. Don't push her. You know, not good, bad boy, naughty boy." You're labeling this child, and he starts believing that he's bad, and then he gets defensive, and the lack of empathy shown to him by his own parent or his teacher is how he learns to treat someone else. So it goes down that deep, right? And how do we even begin to change that?
It's a package deal, Kavita, the way I look at it. It's a package deal between the individual human will. He or she need to want that. I mean, I need to give some very superficial examples. Just
Yes.
like he or she goes out of their way to have followers on social media, work on that ab and biceps, he or she need to know by virtue of either enlightenment or proper parenting and education that you are not only here for that. Now, I'm not examining the state of the universe, grosso modo, globally. I'm just saying that if you examine the top 1 billion followers on all forms of social media, with very, very, very few exceptions, it's all towards the vain and the mediocre. I don't want to go through names here because we are not offending anybody, but it's a fact. Examine the top 10 most followed social media accounts, you will see it's all about people who are not doing anything to humanity. And that carries a huge threat to the young generation. It's that they are not favoring achievements anymore. They are only favoring appearances, silicone implants, and other vain statements made by vain people. That's a huge challenge for them. It's very difficult to get a Greta Thunberg around the clock in every country, in every city in this universe. But she is far more important than any of these top 10 leading social media accounts. And regrettably, let's face it, Kavita, this is the state where we are now. And maybe such a prognosis will offer a good diagnosis to begin that journey of hang on, there is more to that. I would like to give you another example. If you look also at the consistent racism that is being thrown towards football players, especially in Europe, just examine what happened in the last match between England and Italy when the English players missed the penalties, and how suddenly, because the three of them that missed, or the two, I can't remember, they were of African origins, suddenly they were dehumanized. That's the second challenge. Remember, the first one is how to become more relevant to their societies by following achievements and not following vanity. The second is this: how do you stop dehumanizing the others? Number one, who has given you the license to operate to dehumanize? If you are white or black, Asian or European, Muslim, Hindu, or Christian, who has given you that license? It does not exist in any moral code of conduct. So everything that you are saying, Kavita, falls into this. How do you stop dehumanizing? Dehumanizing at home by shaming, dehumanizing at school by bullying, dehumanizing at politics by endless wars and fundamentalism and racism. This is where I believe the efforts of the next stage of social scientists, psychologists, and I hope to God political leaders will work on. And this is the third challenge for this young generation. You need to choose your role models properly. Unfortunately, there are no Nelson Mandelas around, unfortunately. But the role models that these youngsters will choose will impact policy making in the future. If you want to follow a populist, racist, semi-Nazi, or a fundamentalist, bigoter, hater, then you are not doing this world a favor. You are only doing your inner negative tendencies a favor. So if I want to list the challenges of the young generation, I would say, in summary, they need to be more relevant to their communities. And they are only more relevant if they know who to choose as leaders, if they are capable of practicing that empathy through all walks of life, and finally, if they are capable of accelerating the pace of our moral evolution. By the way, we as humans, we have not evolved morally. We haven't. We are just starting. I mean, just look at in the UK in the late 1920s, women were not even allowed to esteemed universities like Cambridge. It's only, that's less than 100 years. So there's so much to be done on moral evolution, and that is the responsibility of the younger generation. I'm in my fifth decade. I can talk, but the energy sits not with me. It sits with the younger generation, especially in countries where they can vote and elect powerful leaders who can influence policymakers. So, in order to accelerate the pace of that moral evolution, you have to be careful who are your role models, who are your mentors, whom you are going to vote for. Because at the end of the day, to make empathy an institution, it has to be a commodity. You need to have Empathy National Day. You need to have empathy ambassadors. You need to have empathy heroes. You need to have the likes of Greta Thunberg sitting in key places in the UN or other esteemed organizations to make a difference. The commodification of things in our society exists everywhere. And sadly, it's not all good. Most prominently is religion. The way religion is commodified is disastrous, and we don't have to expand too much here. So if we are able to commodify empathy, to make it like a Christmas thing, where everybody celebrate and everybody look forward to it, then that will be the way forward, I believe. That will be the first step in the correction we're looking for.
Yeah. But I hate to sound like this is a mountain to climb, but
Indeed, it is.
it is a mountain to climb.
Indeed.
So how do you take the first step? How do you take the first step?
I will definitely begin with my very, very, very small and elite inner circle, assuming that I have done the job internally as an individual. And I hope and I pray to God that my loved ones, be it my children, be it my family, be it my partner, be it my friends, I hope and pray to God that this will be contagious. And eventually, if it does become contagious, you will never know who will pick up the Greta Thunberg moment. What is so significant about people like Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi and Greta Thunberg is that they represent a moment in history. Now, Greta Thunberg might not continue with her energy level. I hope that she will, but she has definitely inspired millions and millions of young kids to do that. You see, parallel to that force that exists on social media, which is the negative force, as I call it, because unfortunately the youth are choosing the wrong role models. These models have no achievements. They have other things, but they're irrelevant to our life, to be honest. Greta Thunberg offers that achievement model, but there will be others. There will be others. I gave you the example of racism. It's the most abhorring and repulsive tendency anyone can carry, but it's still around us and it's everywhere, whether we admit it or not. It's in my country, it's in other countries, it's in hidden in religion, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. So, but that we have been fighting that for the last 60 years. And we had wonderful people like Dr. King and other preaching against racism, and it's still there. I'm not specifically talking about the US, but he is a role model in fighting racism. But progress was made, at least on an institutional level. Just like progress was made, at least on an institutional level, when it comes to gender. Women are not now banned from doing, I would say, 9 out of 10 things that they were banned. I mean, just to give you an idea how bad the situation was, less than 200 years, women were accused of flying on brooms and committing sorcery and witchcraft. So talk about empathy. So we have come a long way in this, but in our humanity progress, there is so much knowledge in the last 50 years accumulated compared to the knowledge accumulated since the days of Adam. So there's so much knowledge and there's so much tools thanks to technology. But yet it's the nurture that is not there, the education is not there, And most importantly, the manifestation of these two, nurture and education, will be implementation. Quick answer to your question: how to implement that, how to start. Just begin with yourself. people who carry People who carry the mass audiences on social media, I'm not one of them, propagate that message. Don't propagate vain things. Don't propagate vain things. And finally, make sure that it is contagious. Make sure that's a topical conversation besides iPhone features and beside other stuff that are out there. Make sure it's a topical conversation, because when you start, we learn a lot by learning and imitation. When it's out there as a topical conversation, and by the way, there are some groups advocating that, then you represent a platform. I asked my other daughter, Dala, who's 22, I told her, what do you think your generation need in order to produce more Greta Thunberg? She said, we need a platform. Because once you have a platform, you start clubbing the like-minded people. And from there, leadership will ensue. And from there, an institution will start forming. That's the way forward, as I said.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work.
But Kavita, it's a beautiful task.
Of
It's
course.
by far the biggest and the most honorable task to live for. I mean, fighting for your country is very honorable, but also fighting for that against your own wicked self. That's a wonderful, wonderful task.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way forward is, I feel, just to ask a simple question: are you happy with where the world is today?
The way the world is today,
Yeah, I mean, just ask yourself: are you happy with the way the world is today, or do you envision a better world? And I think across the board, people will. How can we be happy with the way the world is today when there is war, there is famine, there are children being thrown across walls, there's death, there's forests being set on fire, there's climate change, there's deep unhappiness because we've disconnected ourselves with nature, um, from nature. I mean, there isn't. We are not happy with the way the world is today. So something needs to change. The desire to change needs to be inculcated in people. The desire to move forward before it's too
definitely.
late, needs to be inculcated. And I don't think, like, I'll give you an example. You're so right that even at the media outlets give, I think, more time in 2 days to Elon Musk and Richard Branson's trip to space than they did on climate change for the full year. There was
Definitely.
more airtime given to them going to space. Um, I'm sorry, Jeff Bezos, not Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson going to space, than to climate change in the entire year. So,
True.
why are they even being allowed to go to space? Why can't those billions be put towards better means? Why who is making those decisions? Why is this? So you see, it's so granular, and then we
Definitely.
all stick to the TV, glued to the TV, saying, oh my god, they went to space, they went to space.
You see, honestly, what you were saying is so correct and accurate. It all goes back, and I would like to tie it to the relationship management. We have started this conversation.
Yeah.
I, thou, I, it. We are it when it comes to watching Bezos and Branson going to space or to Neptune or whatever. We are it, but we should be thou because of the unity in being. I can't be bothered, to be honest, who goes to Neptune or to Pluto. But I am bothered if I know that the temperature is going to rise by 5 degrees or drop by 3 degrees, because our entire life will change. But on the point of asking the right questions, which you said about the state of the universe, am I happy? Am I looking forward? That's a very important point, because you see, only when you start asking yourself the right questions, you become a better individual, starting with the food you consume, ending with the amount of exercise you do or not, ending with the way you speak to people or not. However, you cannot possibly, I'm speaking here to the younger generation, ask yourself the right questions if you have not defined yourself in society in a meaningful way. This is what we were talking about. The young generation, big challenge now is to be relevant, because I feel most of them are an accessory to life. Accessory, a nice little earring here, a facial there, so on and so forth. But it's only when you are a necessity to your community, then you are capable of not only asking the right questions, but probably answering them. Probably answering them. And then we move to the second stage. Look, I speak to my daughters, I speak to their generation, be it at the university or outside. There's so much enlightenment. There's so much knowledge. Maybe one of this generation will find the cure for cancer. Maybe. But also maybe one of this generation will carry the flag that all of those great names we have discussed will become a state of being, and it will become an institution, and it will be enforced in the UN Charter, and it will be punishable by law in schools, in communities, in societies. You bully, you get fired. In corporations, you bully, you get fired. It has to be a punishable act, as opposed to a little memo, if often sent, maybe not sent, or school principal nodding their heads and telling you that he fully understands what you are going through. But that is sympathy. But I want empathy, because sympathy is when you do this and then you lead me out of your office gracefully and then you attend to your work. But empathy is when you lead me out of your office, I'm talking here to the school principal, and you do something about it. You do something to that kid who has bullied mine. That is empathy. And the beauty, I know we're running out of time here. The beauty of empathy, it becomes like a mirror. It becomes like a mirror, but what you're looking at is not your sick self. You are looking at your value system and the unity of being and the universe at large.
Absolutely. I want to thank you for bringing this important conversation to light. And as you rightly said, it is very much about turning the mirror within. You know,
Absolutely.
how do you speak to yourself? How do you treat your body? How do you treat yourself? If you feel empty and malnourished, then you will not have a full, wholesome energy, a holistic energy to give to the world. You will come to the world empty and dissatisfied, and that energy translates. So it all begins from doing the work within, at home, in schools. Before we go to the public platform, start with our private homes. The way you spoke about your child and the bullying, and your daughter choosing kindness over being tough, you know.
Yeah, what does that mean? Tough. Absolutely.
What is tough? What is tough? So
Empathy is tough. Empathy is
empathy
tough.
is, that is resilience, right? Empathy
Absolutely.
cultivates resilience.
Absolutely.
It's just kindness. And I think before we wrap up, and I know you will agree with me, I think the only thing we need as a human race to move forward is connection and kindness and love. And we see what is happening to the world when we move away from these values, right?
Amen to that anytime.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kavita. And
Thank you.
thank for all the organizers for having me and for our listeners. Thank you
Thank
all.
you so much, everyone.
God bless you all. Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye.